And it's by the data. And by the way, there are so many reasons today to be losing faith in our institutions. And I agree with the host. We wouldn't want to go down the path of a country, and this is why I care about this so deeply. When your population loses its faith in its institutions, bad things happen. It's not a good place. Society erodes. It crumbles. That's why I care about this so deeply. And it's why I care so much about this recent thing that just came out. Maybe you read about it. The FDA just approved Biogen's Alzheimer's drug, despite a complete lack of evidence that it actually worked. This is an incredible story. It says, maybe this is why we're losing the faith. Maybe it's not because we're bad people who just don't have enough faith in science, which is an oxymoron. You can't have faith in science. It's not how it works, right? So at any rate, it says here the FDA has approved Biogen's Alzheimer's drug, aducanumab. I don't even know how to pronounce that. A mab. Anyway, which will be marketed as Aduhelm. Biogen is charging $56,000 per year for the drug. Oh, but don't worry. The insurance companies will pick up most of that. Pay no attention to the fact that your insurance policy will be going up 14% next year. All right? That's how that works. Like, oh, insurance pays for it. No. Pretty sure I end up paying for that, and you end up paying for that. Why this matters, Aduhelm is the first federally approved Alzheimer's treatment in roughly 18 years. So a first for Alzheimer's, a terrible disease. So of course we would want treatments for that. But there is no conclusive evidence that the drug slows the decline of memory and brain function. Isn't that the point of, I thought that's what Alzheimer's was. So the drug works for Alzheimer's. It just doesn't actually slow the decline of memory and loss and brain function. Drilling down, the FDA issued an accelerated approval. This is an accelerated approval. This thing's so important. We got to get it out right away. It's an IV drug. It has to be administered in a doctor's office. Comes with official warnings of, brain swelling, bleeding, brain bleeding. Accelerated approval requires Biogen to conduct a post-approval confirmatory trial to test whether the drug actually shows any benefits, cognitive benefits in this case. Post-approval confirmatory trial. Wouldn't you want that to be the pre-approval? I might not be familiar with the whole drug approval process. I would kind of think you'd want to show benefit first and market it second. But in this case, they switched that around a little bit. In green, quote, if the confirmatory trial does not verify the drug's anticipated clinical benefit, according to the FDA, the agency and drug company could pull the drug from market. Bet they won't. I know how this game works. Once those things are out on the market, they tend to stay there. Finally, yes, but Biogen will still be able to sell Aduhelm while the confirmatory trial is ongoing. What happened here? How is this even possible that a drug was approved in an accelerated approval program by the FDA? How do I have faith in the system? Well, it turned out that immediately the FDA has both an internal panel and then they have these advisory panels of experts who they bring in as part of the review process to look over all the data. And by the way, a submission for something like this has a stack of paper like this deep, trial after trial, safety data, tox data, you name it, right? So this expert panel wades through all of that, and then they weigh in on it. And it says here, following the FDA's polarizing, that's a word, authorization of the Alzheimer therapy Aduhelm on Monday, a member of that committee has resigned in protest. Now that's integrity. I love seeing this. This was neurologist Joel Perlmutter of Washington University in St. Louis, a member of that expert panel, said, due to this ruling by the FDA without further discussion of our advisory committee, I'm out of here, he says. Way to go, Joel. Awesome. The advisory committee, which convened in November, couldn't have been more openly skeptical of the drug. 10 of the 11 panelists found there was not enough evidence to show it could slow cognitive decline. The 11th voted uncertain. 10 out of 11. That's kind of how many out of the 11 said, this thing looks like it shows some sort of benefit. That'd be a goose egg. That's the big zero. So when we think about how, when we think about this whole idea that we're losing faith, it's just terrible. We don't want to become Russia. Well, you know how you become Russia and people have no faith in their ruling authorities and their medical authorities? It's because of crap like this. full stop. And by the way, it goes a little bit further than that. So it turns out that another person actually resigned as well, Kesselheim here, and he said the Alderhelm decision was probably the worst drug approval decision in recent U.S. history. It's a pretty bad one, particularly because, let's carry this story forward. It turns out that there's a third member that actually resigned from this whole thing as well. And so we heard about Kesselhelm there, and let's see. Kesselhelm said, my rationale was that the FDA needs to reevaluate how it solicits and uses the advisory committees, because I didn't think that the firm recommendations from the committee in this case, were appropriately integrated into the decision-making process. That's a very polite way, Professor Aaron Kesselheim, very, very polite way of saying they completely ignored us. We were a show panel. We were just this dressed up show panel. Didn't matter. The FDA was going to make whatever decision it wanted to make, which, by the way, again, went the direction of a very expensive treatment, $56,000 a year. How did this get normalized? We hear about things like this all the time now. Drug treatments that cost $50, $60, $70, $80, $130,000 for a treatment dose or for a single year. How did that even become a thing? How is that even remotely? What kind of a country does that to itself? You know what? Other countries don't have those drug pricings. It's kind of just the United States. These are self-inflicted wounds, but back all the way up. I don't know, Tony, people are losing faith in you. That means they're losing faith in science. No, we're losing faith in the institutions that are supposed to be conducting the science. There's a distinction there that's not that hard to figure out. As well, we had a third person who, David Notman, he resigned as well. So 3 people on the committee said, I'm out. They tapped out on this whole thing because it was just too disgusting of a process. So congrats to all those people who used their integrity to bail out of a system that's fundamentally lacking in all integrity and about which you can have almost no faith. But you know where I lost my faith in the FDA? You want to know where that happened? It happened because when we saw remdesivir, which is also called Veklury, it's that Gilead product, that thing got greased right through too. That had the accelerated approval. Woohoo! They snuck that one right through. And that was on that was early on, it had emergency use authorization. But then on October 22nd, 2020, the FDA fully approved Veklury or remdesivir for use in adults and pediatric patients 12 years of age or older and weighing at least 40 kilos for the treatment of COVID-19 requiring hospitalization. This stuff doesn't work. By that point in time, we'd had all the data we needed. It doesn't work. And in fact, it might even be worse than nothing because it has some serious side effects, kidney damage, all kinds of stuff, right? So looking at the second part from the FDA down here, it says, and here they're describing why they even issued the EUA, the emergency use authorization. They say, in issuing an EUA, the FDA must determine, among other things, that the product may be effective in diagnosing, treating, or preventing a serious or life-threatening disease or condition caused by a chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear agent, that there are no adequate, approved, or available alternatives. That's all they have to do for an EUA is say there's nothing else we can use and this stuff may be effective. Now, if you've been watching this show for a while, you know that we were surfacing over and over again a lot of different things that were proven to be effective. And still they went forward with this idea that as of October 22nd, 2020, and earlier for remdesivir, there wasn't any other choice. There was just nothing else we could do, right? So compared to this stuff, which I still can't openly say this name. I can't. Other people can on YouTube, but I still can't do this right now. This stuff right here. It says the FDA has not approved this stuff, Duizabin 2, which is the acronym for Duizabin is drug which shall not be named. Duizabin 2, because there was a first one. Duizabin 2, for use in treating or preventing COVID-19 in humans, Duizabin 2 tablets are approved at very specific doses for some parasitic worms, and there are topical on-the-skin formulations for head lice and skin conditions like Rosacea, it's not an antiviral. Actually, it is. There's a ton of data on that. Taking large doses of this drug is dangerous and can cause serious harm. The FDA says that. That's what they're like, boom. Well, it doesn't cause brain bleeding or swelling, so there's that. In fact, out of 4 billion doses administered so far, we have almost no serious adverse events to report on this that I'm aware of. Literally, there are only 28 that I'm aware of out of all of that time where you could say this might have been something that caused an issue. And by the way, almost all of those are because when you take it, it's so effective, it wipes out your parasitic infection so fast that the clogging up and the effect of having all that stuff dumping into your body, it was too effective. But what it didn't do was directly have toxicity on its own. It's that safe. And yet the FDA, bullet point 2, they say taking large doses of this drug is dangerous and can even cause harm. But they can't point to any data where that's actually a true statement. All right. So that was their super hard stance on this. Can't do anything about this. No chance. Right. And meanwhile, this other stuff, which has no effect and causes brain bleeding, they're like, oh, yeah, let's grease that stuff right through. That's all fine. By the way, you might not have known this, but water is dangerous in high doses. And it turns out, let me get my little drawing tool out here because we're just going to do this real quick. So it turns out, overhydration, that happens when a person drinks more water than their kidneys can get rid of via urine in time. And according to all their studies down here, the kidneys can eliminate about a liter of substance every hour to avoid this thing called hyponatremia. Hypo means too little. Na in that is sodium in this case. That's what happens. You drink too much water, your blood becomes too dilute. You have too little sodium in your circulating volume of fluid. It's called hyponatremia. So it's important not to outpace the kidneys. So it turns out that if a person drinks 3 to 4 liters of water in a short period of time, that's dangerous. That's where you can actually, people die from this all the time. So if you can drink 1 liter, but 3 to 4 is too much. So let's just do a little quick math in that then. Let's do this. Turns out water, 2 to 4 times the normal amount is considered dangerous, but in Duizabin 2, you can take up to 10 times the actual dose that people are typically taking, and everything's A-okay. So that means, by this logic, Duizabin 2 is actually safer than water.